He was heaven's favored son, born with the heart of a lion, yet misfortune placed him in an era where the scepter was colder than bloodlines, and his own father viewed him as a thorn that had to be plucked. This was not merely a battle for the throne meticulously orchestrated by his mother, but a bloody deception that would thoroughly shred the bonds of father and son, turning brothers into bitter enemies. As he fought bathed in blood, believing the glittering crown was within his grasp, he was startled to realize that from the very beginning, he had been nothing more than a pawn on a chessboard, manipulated at will and ready to be sacrificed at any moment. And the chess player, hiding behind the scenes, was far more unfathomable than he had ever imagined. The story winds back to the year 1173 AD, when the European continent was being torn apart by two powerful forces, England and France. The fates of the two kingdoms were intertwined as never before. The three sons of King Henry II of England, Richard, Henry, and Geoffrey, incited by their mother, Queen Eleanor of France, ignited the flames of rebellion. Their goal seemed grand, to usurp the throne of their father, who was expanding his territory in France. Yet behind this lay nothing but the mournful cry of a broken family.
Who are you, and what are you doing on my land?
I'm here to arrest Queen Eleanor of Aquitaine.
Your husband, Henry II, King of England, orders you to follow me.
King Louis of France keenly caught the scent of prey. Seeing a perfect opportunity to divide the English royal family, he warmly invited the three princes to Paris to forge a solemn alliance against their father. However, victory in war never depends solely on the sharpness of blades, but on the treachery of the human heart. A fierce skirmish broke out first. Richard's army met his father's loyal guards on a narrow stone bridge. The fighting was exceptionally brutal. The clang of swords was incessant, and fresh blood stained the ancient stone slabs. Facing the enemy, Richard's brother showed no fear, attempting to turn the opponents and appeal to them with so-called justice.
Abandon that flag or abandon your life. You have one chance to join us against our father the king.
Yet the only response he received was fiercer strikes of the sword. Before the meat grinder of power, words are pale and futile. Eventually, the rebel banner plummeted into the river, much like their teetering, naive fantasies, symbolizing the failure of their first engagement. Soon after, the two brothers finally arrived at the French king's camp. They thought that by meeting a powerful ally, they were one step closer to toppling their tyrannical father, unaware that they were stepping into a trap that had long since been set. Meanwhile, their mother, Queen Eleanor, the architect of this rebellion, had been reduced to a prisoner. King Henry II personally interrogated his own wife. His words were filled with irony regarding the dynasty, accusing his wife of being someone who appeared close on the surface but secretly plotted his death. The queen merely smiled with contempt, mocking her husband for being as full of theatrics as ever. The king demanded to know why she betrayed him, why she incited their sons to rise up against him. The queen accused the king of sending Richard into danger and nearly getting him killed, claiming it all stemmed from her hatred for her husband, a hatred that ran to her very marrow. Watching this couple torture each other, one cannot help but sigh. Love and hate are often separated by a thin line. Under the corruption of power, former bedfellows become executioners who know best how to plunge a knife into the other's weak spot. The king spoke of the immense wealth the war was costing, but the queen retorted sarcastically that he always found a way to become richer. Finally, negotiations broke down.
Take her away!
The king ordered the queen to be taken away, extinguishing the last flicker of warmth in this family.
And in addition to the chains, don't forget the gag. That'll keep us silent for a while.
On the other side, the princes arrived at the camp of King Louis of France. They were confused by the grand reception. As sons of the English king, they should have been enemies of France. But Prince Henry soon rationalized it, convincing himself that since they were also contenders for the throne, they were allies invited by the French king himself.
sorry.
I am at your service, my lord, by order of the king. I will pray for you.
However, a conspiracy was brewing in the shadows.
Geoffrey?
You're late, brother.
He smiled as he welcomed these rebels to his hunting ground, a place where the hunter could become the prey at any moment. This is the true face of politics. There are no eternal allies, only eternal interests. Inside the allies' tent, the brothers argued endlessly about their next move. Henry naively believed that, with the support of forces like Scotland and Flanders, their father would obediently surrender. But Geoffrey pointed out sharply, when has their father ever yielded for a moment? Whether fighting his own mother or throwing his own son into prison, he never hesitated. Geoffrey questioned Henry. What kind of test were they facing? And did they really have the courage to face their father? The conflict between the brothers erupted at that moment. This is the tragedy of human nature. Even in the face of a great enemy, internal suspicion never ceases. King Louis appeared and interrupted their quarrel. He feigned reassurance, claiming they would decide after the Queen arrived, using words about battlefield mud staining their white teeth to mask his impending betrayal. Such hypocritical elegance. In private, the conflict between Henry and Geoffrey intensified. Henry could not accept his father gifting 3 castles to their younger brother John, while Geoffrey resented that their mother had given all her love to Henry. He announced that this rebellion was merely between Henry and the king, implying he was going to withdraw. However, to secure Geoffrey's support, Henry agreed to an absurd condition. He had to guarantee that the army would not touch any churches or monasteries during the march, as these would become Geoffrey's spoils after the rebellion. These were the so-called insurgents. In the face of greed, faith was nothing more than a fig leaf. However, a sudden attack completely disrupted all plans. The Knights Templar stormed the camp. Richard lost control of his emotions as memories of imprisonment flooded back.
Richard!
His spirit was near collapse, muttering that he was a dead man. Even worse, news arrived.
Damn.
Their mother had been captured while on her way to join them. Her itinerary, which should have been secret, had been leaked by someone who shouldn't have known. The rebels' situation became increasingly dire, as if an invisible hand were manipulating everything. Meanwhile, King Henry II had already foreseen everything. He calmly deployed his forces, preparing to deal a fatal blow to his sons. For him, dealing with his own family required even more meticulous preparation. This was not just a war, but a calculation of human hearts. During their days in exile, the princes received support from Scotland, who agreed to send troops from the north to pin down the king. But the price was that after the rebellion, they would have to give up all territorial sovereignty over Scotland. Henry was furious at this. He knew his father would never accept such unfair conditions, but Geoffrey coldly stated that losers have no room for choice. Their father would eventually be forced to sign a surrender. Geoffrey warned him that if he insisted on walking this path of no return, he must be prepared to face all consequences, for the victor would become the new king. In the face of desperation, dignity became the first luxury to be abandoned. Finally, Henry made up his mind and let Geoffrey reply to the King of Scotland, stating that the post-war outcome would be determined by his performance. Richard, who was suffering greatly, was tended to by a maid named Mary.
Marie, why did you say you would pray for me?
Because the church is our only salvation. I have heard that churches will be looted to cover the expenses of the rebellion.
Mary told Richard she would pray for him because there were rumors that the rebels would sack churches to raise funds. Richard was startled. This was exactly the secret agreement between him and Geoffrey. He felt physically and mentally exhausted, believing himself to be beyond redemption. Mary leaned in gently, telling him that her prayer was her presence in that moment. In a world full of betrayal, this seemed to be the only warmth, yet he did not know that this tender embrace was also a hero's tomb. At this time, the imprisoned Queen Eleanor was confronting the knight guarding her, William. She reminded William that it was he who had abducted her and slaughtered her followers. William brought the king's order. Eleanor was to be transferred to a castle in England to spend the rest of her life there.
You're leaving.
Where am I going?
To a castle in England, from where you will never be allowed to leave.
Cracks began to appear within the rebel alliance. Henry's trust in King Louis of France began to waver. Geoffrey kept encouraging him, painting a picture of a beautiful tomorrow after victory, claiming they would bring rebirth and hope. How ironic. They wanted to bring hope, yet they were creating hell. The Knights Templar began to attack a fortified castle. The commander was none other than Richard's former superior, William.
The king should command his men to return to England.
The king doesn't want to harm you, but if he's forced to...
You would lay siege against a true ally?
Inside the castle, William encountered Alice, a noble girl whose father he had once killed.
Well, their answer, Captain.
There is nothing but women, children, and old men left in the city. They will surrender without a fight.
The rebel vanguard reported that only women, children, and the elderly remained in the city, and that they would surrender soon.
Templar we met at King Louis' camp has beaten us to it. He's persuaded all the men to leave for the crusade.
Crusade. Pure folly.
But the Knights Templar beat them to it, persuading everyone to join the Crusades. Henry sneered at this, thinking these people foolishly chose a higher level of nothingness. Henry also began to suspect what had really happened while Richard was imprisoned. Alice came to invite William to the king's welcome party, and the atmosphere between them was thick with tension. Alice could not forgive him for killing her father, even if it had been in an honorable duel. She questioned William on what benefit came from taking another's life. William answered painfully that it was what he had to do as a knight. William's answer was heartbreaking. He said he prayed every day for the same thing to happen to him. What a pale defense. When a blade points at an enemy, the other end always points at one's own conscience. William tried to use honor to numb himself, but he could not cover up the fact that this war had no justice at all. The siege was imminent, but the rebels' supplies were running low. They had reached the verge of failure. Prince Henry decided to storm Rouen Castle immediately. At the military council, the captain analyzed the castle's defenses: double solid walls, a single narrow and fortified entrance. Their father was well protected inside, and the castle commander, William, was an indestructible warrior whom no one could beat, even at chess. Bribing him was impossible. Given the severe shortage of supplies, they had to attack immediately.
Sirs, I would like to present you a couple of friends who may be very useful to us.
Just then, Geoffrey brought in a few new friends, several craftsmen who would become the key to the siege. The battle began. The rebel trebuchets launched a fierce attack on the castle, but the stones were not powerful enough to destroy the sturdy walls, nor could they deal with the archers atop them.
Rocks are too big to be effectual against their archers! Another retreat! Retreat! Retreat!
The first charge failed under a dense rain of arrows, and the rebels were forced to retreat. At the critical moment, Richard proposed a bold plan. Displaying exceptional military talent, he ordered the soldiers to replace the large stones with bags filled with small rocks and hurl them at the walls with the trebuchets. At the same time, he had Henry lead the main force to attack the gate to attract the garrison's attention.
Hope you know what you're doing, brother.
The stone-filled bags were cut open in midair, and countless small rocks smashed onto the archers on the wall like a rainstorm, instantly suppressing their firepower. Meanwhile, Richard led another team and quietly scaled the walls using grappling hooks. Inside the castle, King Henry II appeared unusually calm upon learning that the rebels had breached the walls, a calmness that was chilling. As rebels swarmed into the castle, Alice's uncle was killed by the king, but in his final moments, he handed a crucial key to Alice. The battle entered a phase of brutal street fighting, with both sides engaging in a desperate struggle within the narrow passages. Richard finally found the mastermind, the steward who had feigned alliance but actually betrayed them. He angrily asked why he betrayed them, why he started this meaningless war.
What a useless war will be won. You have been betrayed. You are slave to a power far greater than yourself.
The steward revealed the truth. The king had never left. He was simply using Richard to achieve his own ends.
I claim this castle as conquered.
The castle?
Richard had been utterly betrayed. He had won a worthless war. He painfully asked whether they were fighting a just war at all.
We are fighting a just war, are we not?
Yet all of this had long been within King Henry II's calculations. Through a messenger, the king revealed a shocking secret to his nephew.
My dear young Stuart, nephew of Robert of the 6 Golden Haystacks. Not even my sons know about this. No message will ever reach their ears. All messages to and from the rebels are intercepted. Ah, yes. Another little secret among kings. Louis has given me all the provisions that I require and has granted me safe passage to Rouen.
All messages to the rebel camp had been intercepted, and King Louis of France had long since allied with him, providing all supplies for his trip to Rouen. The rebel princes soon tasted the bitter fruit of betrayal. King Louis's army followed close behind, looting all the churches and monasteries they had agreed to protect and framing them for the crimes, causing the Pope's army to turn against them as well. The rebels were besieged on all sides, and the cause of it all was Richard's trust in the maid, Mary. His brother mocked him for falling for the oldest trick in the book. Now the king was getting richer behind their backs, while they wouldn't even be able to feed their own army in a few weeks. The king's messenger was none other than the pious maid Mary. She brought Henry II's mockery. The young lions were getting poorer by the day, while the king's coffers were overflowing. The king even praised Mary, saying she had successfully tamed Richard and promised her a bright future. The scheme succeeded. Friends became enemies. The powerful king gained all the benefits. All alliances were broken. The rebellion failed completely, and the sons would return to their proper places.
The rebels are defeated. Sons will be put back in their place.
In despair, Alice told Richard the origin story of the knight, trying to awaken the honor within him. She said that the sword serves as a constant reminder to a knight.
Do you know what keeps us stuck in this world? The sword. It reminds you constantly of how difficult your path is, and as much as you point a blade at your enemies, an edge will be always pointed at you.
When the blade points at an enemy, there is always another end pointing at oneself. However, cruel reality descended once more. The king's army had surrounded the castle.
All wars against one's own family are heartless wars.
They were isolated and helpless. The rebel steward appeared again. The rebellion was over, he said, and a steward could not stay on the side of the losers. When asked how he could sleep, he coldly answered, "A steward never sleeps." This sentence was like a heavy hammer, waking up all those obsessed with power. In the king's shadow, servants are often the deadliest observers. Henry locked himself in the city, determined to bear his father's wrath alone. In the name of brotherhood, he asked Richard to leave, but Richard refused to abandon him. Alice then revealed the secret of the castle's hidden passage. The king finally breached the castle. Looking at the victory before him, his heart was filled with desolation. He knew that any war won against his own sons was a heartless victory. Richard won a hard-fought victory in his final duel with William. He knelt in the castle, feeling an unprecedented emptiness. He had become a clown of history, besieged in the very city he had conquered, abandoned by everyone. He won a battle but lost his entire life. He was nothing. Just in his moment of despair, an unexpected person appeared, his mother, Queen Eleanor. She told Richard that change is but a brief rest in the river of time, and many battles are actually won in the bedroom. She mentioned the beautiful Alice, hinting to Richard that his father would order a marriage, and a new political alliance was about to begin. The Queen was ready to stage a new play. She reminded Richard to bow properly to his father, for he loved theatrical things the most. Queen Eleanor smiled contemptuously as if mocking this absurd fate. For Richard the Lionheart, although a rebellion had ended, the power game within the royal family had only just begun. On the altar of power, even a lion cannot escape the fate of being tamed or sacrificed.